Okay, guess we're doing this here now. Hey, welcome to Hey, How's That Work with Luca? That's me, I'm Luca. Wow, no way. Today, we're gonna be talking about metal. Like a lot of metal and a lot of science. And get ready to see a lot of notes because I'm not a chemist, nor Bill and I. So I didn't memorize all this, so here you go. So let's learn about metal together right now. So, you want to build a watch. Well, good luck. You've got a lot ahead of you. Now that you've got your luck, you're going to need to pick, well, what am I going to build it out of? You could build it out of seashells, carbon fiber, wood, cheese, gold, brick. I don't know. Anything you pick is going to have its own pros and cons, and say if you want to build a gold watch, well, it's going to be expensive, it's going to be a little bit heavy, and if you're working with just pure gold, it's going to be very soft. And actually not super shiny. Not as shiny as you would like it, like these bad boys. Or say you want to build one out of titanium. Well, titanium is very strong. It's got the highest strength to weight ratio of any metal, but you also have to take into account it's hard to machine. So it's got its own unique set of circumstances that's going to make it difficult in its own special way to work with. You know, like gold or silver or stainless or platinum, titanium, bronze. I haven't seen many cheese watches, but if you know of any cheese watches, please let me know. But if you're going to build it out of metal, well, you're going to need a whole lot of science. And I hope you're ready for more metal science than you ever wanted to know, unless you're a metallurgist, in which case, this is right up your alley. We're going to start with stainless steel. It's kind of in the middle. It's the most common metal out there in terms of at least watch cases and bracelets and stuff. Inside the watch, it's a little different story. You'll see a lot more brass and stuff, but that's neither here nor there. So, stainless steel, the vanilla ice cream of the watchmaking world. There's a million different kinds of stainless with a million different properties. So let's get right into it. Just like any of the other metals, there is not just one stainless steel. In fact, stainless steel is an alloy itself. It's an alloy of steel. So steel on its own it's very strong. It's relatively lightish, so it's got a good strength to weight ratio. However, it is prone to corrosion. It's also magnetic, which is really not something you want with watches. Magnetism just wreaks havoc on the inside of a watch, or the movement more specifically. So for every industry, they have their own steel. For example, there is stainless steel. Stainless steel is defined by the amount of chromium that's alloyed in. You can't have stainless without chromium. You also have, say, tool steels. Tool steels are going to be ones used for like drill bits or like machine parts. They're going to have different qualities than your regular stainless steel. There's also, there's austenitic alloys of stainless steel, which have a special grain structure. They have a crystalline grain structure, and that leads the metal to be tough. It's harder. It's also anti-magnetic, and it's not heat treatable. So heat's not really going to affect the quality of the metal so much. So that's good for, certain industries, but maybe not so much for others. So basically, steel is it's the flour of this recipe. It's the base. And then you can get whatever kind of cake you want by throwing in your alloying metals. What is an alloy? Probably should have said that way earlier. But an alloy is just a metal that is combined with another element. So I'm going to go over some of those alloying metals, and we'll kind of see what those will bring to the recipe. And by choosing your ingredients, your alloys, you can get a metal with virtually any quality. I mean, you can get all kinds of crazy stuff with steel. And that's why you see it just about everywhere in every industry, because it's so versatile. It's the butter of metals, steel. That's the new one. Let's go. You can alloy in chromium, molybdenum, vanadium, manganese, boron, lead, silicon, copper, tungsten, nickel, and it's not limited to just this. You know, like your periodic table where you have the weird bottom ones that are like radioactive and only found in space? There's some of those too, but we're not gonna get into those because I feel like you're probably not going to see Neptunium in your Rolex. Actually, I say that, and that's exactly the kind of thing Rolex would do. They would absolutely put in like a little drop of like uranium and be like, oh, your watch has uranium, it's mildly radioactive, haha. So, sticking with the recipe metaphor, first ingredient we're going to look at that's used to alloy is nickel. So nickel is used to manufacture, well, austenitic stainless steel. When you alloy with nickel, the combination of nickel and chromium, because remember chromium is the key ingredient to get stainless steel. The combination of nickel and chromium will lead the metal to be tougher, more impact strength, and it will be stronger at lower temperatures. Another ingredient, metal element to alloy stainless steel is silicon. Silicon is actually probably the most common ingredient used in alloying stainless steel. So when you add silicon during the alloying process, the main reason it's used is to purify iron ore during the smelting process by deoxidizing it and removing other impurities. Coming from nature, elements almost always have some other stuff thrown in there, stuck onto it. You rarely ever find a pure element in nature. So you're going to have impurities. And when I say impurities, it might not be grime or dirt or something. It might just be another metal that gives you a weird end result. So that's what you're doing. That's why you're cleaning it. Besides its cleansing properties, it can also have an effect on the mechanical properties of steel. More specifically, it can increase the strength and hardenability of certain steels, as well as affect their magnetic properties. Next one is copper. Y'all know what copper is? I hope you know what copper is. If you don't, this video is going to be a pain. Copper is a very common alloy ingredient. You see it a lot. It's in gold, it's in silver sometimes, it's in stainless. It's a great metal. What does it do? Copper is effective in preventing corrosion, rust, oxidation, just discoloring. It stabilizes the steel, if you will, against corrosion. That's my final answer. Moving right along, we're gonna look at tungsten. Tungsten has very high melting temperature, so it can increase the melting temperature of steel. It can also increase the wear resistance and the corrosion resistance. Tungsten is very heavy, very dense. You'll see anywhere from like 1% tungsten to like over 15% tungsten. And so it's going to increase the hardness, the strength of the metal, while also increasing the corrosion resistance. But you have to keep in mind, tungsten being as dense and heavy as it is going to come at the cost of weight. The corrosion resistance, that's one of the biggest issues with steel and why you're seeing a lot of this alloying, is to keep it from corroding, because you don't want your watch to corrode and get pitting and weird stuff on there. That's not pretty. We don't like that. So now we're looking at boron. It's not boring. I'm sorry. It's not even a good pun. It's not good. Anyways, all right, so boron. Boron is actually really efficient in terms of an alloy ingredient. You can add in as little as 0.001% by weight of boron, and it can have a huge impact on the steel. Manganese and boron, I'm going to combine those two because they're both going to be used mainly to increase the hardness or the hardenability of the steel, and this is more of a concern in the manufacturing process. The end result, will be a harder, more scratch-resistant metal, and you would see this application in like oh, okay, here it is. Earth-moving equipment and crankshafts. So like the big pushy bits. Bulldozer, that's what I was looking for. Front loader bulldozers, all those. This probably has some boron in there somewhere. Okay, the next one is lead. Lead's a little bit of a weird one. Lead isn't actually an alloying ingredient on its own. If you melt steel and you melt lead, it's going to be like oil and water. They're not going to mix. They're going to stay separate, which, like, why would you want that? If you were to melt that lead and that steel together and then you hardened it, you'd have little bits of lead, little pockets of lead within the steel. And what that does is that actually acts as a lubricant during the manufacturing process. So the lead will actually, since it's so soft, that'll actually help the cutting tools glide through the metal. So that's, like I said, it's a little bit of a weird one, more of a manufacturing alloy, but still shows the kind of things you have to consider when alloying these metals. So we've looked at some alloying steel. Now we're going to look at some of the brand-specific special steel recipes. And that being said, it's kind of like KFC's special spices blend. They're not going to tell you the special spice blend because that's their thing. Just like Rolex or Breitling, Omega, Hublot, they all have their own special alloys. and they're really excited about it and will tell you about them ad nauseum, but they're not going to give you the ingredients. They're not going to give you the recipe. You'll most often see steels referred to by their 3-digit numbers. 304 stainless is the most common stainless. You'll see that everywhere. Breitling and Omega actually use what's called 316L stainless steel. And the difference between your 304 and your 316L is the addition of molybdenum. Molybdenum is a silvery white metal, and what that does, it's going to lead to a very corrosion resistant, very shiny, because that is one thing that is going to be considered when you're making these alloys. So it's got to be strong, corrosion resistant, and it's got to be pretty. So that actually leads to Rolex. They have their oyster steel, and that is their special one. That's in the 904L steel family. 904L, it's shiny and it's corrosion resistant, just like 316L. So that's what they use. And like I said, I have no idea what's in it. So moving right on, we're gonna go and we're gonna look at gold. Gold's kind of on the complete other end of the spectrum. Gold is, well, can take a lot of different colors. As you can see here, these are all gold. So gold, when you're referring to the purity of gold, you're going to refer to the carats. So 24 karat gold is pure, just 100% gold. 18 karat is 75% gold. So as a general recipe, when you're looking at red gold, you would take 75% pure gold. You would alloy in the copper to add some strength, and then you would throw in a little bit of silver to play with the color mostly. If you throw in just copper and gold, you're going to get a very, very reddish color. And say you want to change that color, well, you're going to change the amount of silver in there. Say you want to make yellow gold. Well, same thing. I know gold comes yellow, but you can't just put pure gold. So you're going to do a similar process, which is, wow, it's gold, copper, and silver. It's the same thing, but that's where the amount of the silver and the amount of the copper come into play to get that final color. It's not always silver. You'll use like a silvery metal, so like silver, nickel, palladium, platinum sometimes, but mostly it's going to be silver or palladium. And that's one thing you'll notice a lot with gold alloys is the primary considerations of your gold alloys are going to be 1, hardness, because gold is real soft. 2 is going to be getting a consistent, nice color and getting it real nice and shiny, because that is a consideration. So white gold. White gold's actually an interesting one, and I think it's my favorite of the gold recipes, and you'll see why in a second. But so you take your 75% gold and you're going to alloy in palladium. So the palladium will bleach the gold. For the strength, you'll add in copper. But as you're trying to get white gold, well, copper is going to turn it back red again. So you need to deal with the redness of the copper, and that's where zinc comes into play. So, like I said, it's mitigating the strengths and weaknesses of each metal by adding in other metals. You have gold, soft, yellow. You don't want that, you want white. Palladium, it's nice and silvery, but it's still soft, so you throw in the copper. That is much harder and corrosion resistant, but then it's red, so you need zinc to re-bleach it all. So you kind of see where that give and take is coming into play. So one thing you'll notice that I didn't talk about as much as when I was talking about stainless is corrosion resistance. That's not really a huge issue with gold. Gold is somewhat naturally corrosion resistant on its own. It's not going to like tarnish a bunch over time. It will help with the addition of copper to push that even further. You'll often see rhodium used a lot when you're coming to like certain golds. And rhodium plating gives you a more consistent scratch-free coating on your gold, and it'll kind of help whiten it up. You'll see it a lot in your white golds. One thing you'll probably notice when I'm talking about gold is the softness of it. Really, it's something you got to address. You'll address it through copper and alloys and stuff. And actually, an interesting solution to this has been come up with by Hublot. Hublot has their magic gold, which their magic gold is formed in a process where they take a boron carbide powder and they'll put it into a mold, roughly the shape of whatever your finished thing is. So, you know, this one's a bezel shape, no way. So they put that into the mold and they'll harden it via a cold process. There's a lot of science. I don't know what all they do to it. But the end result is a porous solid that is very hard that they then pump pure liquid gold into. They just inject it straight in there. And so what happens is you end up with this very hard, porous solid infused with gold, but the hardness of the boron and carbide will give you a very, very resilient, scratch-resistant gold finish. Now, like I said, it's not pure gold because you have that boron carbide in there, but it is still technically 18 karat gold. And not technically, I mean, it is 18 karat because it's still 75% gold. So, wow, well, I mean, that's a pretty cool way to go about that. Way to go, Hublot. Next, we're gonna take a look at titanium. It lives in the same world as stainless steel in terms of that it is very, very, very widely used. You see a ton of it. Like stainless steel, there are 1,000,001 different alloys and grades. When we're talking about titanium, grades 1 through 4 are pure titanium, and then all the other stuff, those are the alloys. So when you see brands talk about their titanium they use, they're going to refer to it by grade. Another thing to keep in mind is the color will change between the grades. The grade 2 will look different than the grade 4, which will look different from the grade 9. And the grade 9 is one to keep in mind because that's one that actually Breitling likes to use. And grade 9 it's got a good like medium level of hardness and ductility, which is its flexibility. It also responds well to like cold forming processes, which is what Breitling uses to make specifically the titanium cases. Another thing to keep in mind when you're making a watch is the weight, which is another place where titanium really shines because it's got such that great, weight to strength ratio. It's very light. So on watches that are bigger, say like this Hublot, if this thing were made of stainless, this would be a really heavy watch. If this were made out of gold, this would be ridiculous. So that's another thing to consider when you might use titanium over stainless or platinum or something else. Speaking of platinum, it's actually the next one we're going to look at. We're going to jump right into old Mr. Platinum boy. So platinum, what is it? Well, it's an element and it's a metal. Surprise, surprise, I'm talking about metal. Platinum is very durable. It's not susceptible to tarnishing. It doesn't have to be plated. So it will avoid that, that long-term kind of feeling you get. Like if you have like a gold-plated watch and the plating kind of wears off, that's kind of disappointing. Now, that being said, platinum in its pure state, a lot like gold and these other precious metals, is very soft. It's not great for making jewelry on its own, but when it's alloyed, that's when it really shines. So it's a lot like gold in your considerations. Like I said, it doesn't tarnish, so you don't need to plate it, but you do need to make it stronger than what it already is because it's pretty soft. It's same problems with gold. Rolex really likes to use a 95% platinum, 5% ruthenium in their platinum watches, and that gives you a really strong alloy and very shiny, and that's all things we like. Now we're going to look at silver. Silver is very common as an alloy ingredient, less common as a watch case. Similar to gold, a lot of the same issues. It's very soft, it's very malleable, it's ductile, it's got good corrosion resistance. It's also the most electrical conductive element, period. Which I didn't know that before now. I always thought it was copper. Who would have thought that it's silver? This is actually the only silver watch that I have ever seen. This case is an alloy of silver and aluminum. I'm guessing because, like I said, with the secret sauce and of Rolex and their gold formulas, Tudor didn't feel the need to tell me what all went into their alloy, but the back is stamped with AG and AL, which those are the chemical symbols for silver and aluminum. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's a silver aluminum alloy. The next one we'll talk about is bronze. Bronze is very niche. You're not gonna see a huge number of bronze mid cases. Bronze is an alloy of copper and tin. It's actually the oldest known alloy ever. We've been making that for like 5,000–6,000 years. There's a whole age called the Bronze Age. It oxidizes very easily, which is what this patina is. It's actually a layer of oxidation forming on it, which some people like. It gives you a nice, very unique looking watch. I mean, no two watches are gonna patina the same. So it's kind of like a desirable defect in this instance. So yeah, it's cool, it's very niche. Outside of this, I don't know of too many uses for bronze. You will see bronze tweezers and stuff occasionally, which actually leads into this next part. I have a few of my tweezers here. Just a little aside, I have some nickel tweezers, I have brass tweezers, and I have stainless steel tweezers so that I don't scratch things up. So that's metals. That is my gross oversimplification of the metallurgical processes that go into these. I mean, when I say gross oversimplification, I mean there's you saw my notes. I've been swimming in this stuff. If you want to take a deep dive into the mines of Moria and find out all there is to know about metal, be my guest, but it's organic chemistry, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Let me know how you like it. Actually, if you'd like to like and subscribe and hit the bell icons so that you get notifications when we post new videos, that would be really nice. We would like that, and the algorithm would like that. That's it. I love you. Have a beautiful day.